Good morning, mammoths. How are we feeling? Good? Very good. All right. Well, my name is Michael. I'm here from Hibachi. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about Hibachi and what we do, and specifically the first provable exchange. Now, I could not have asked for a better introduction to the verifiable finance paradigm. And so, with that, I'll talk a little bit about Hibachi, what we do, what we wanted to do. And so, when we started building Hibachi, the main paradigm is, or the main question was, well, how do these exchanges work? How have they worked in the past? And what's the right way to build? And so I'll do a brief history lesson. All of you know this, but we started with centralized exchanges, right? Which is basically the bank approach, just work like any old regular exchange. You don't have any guarantees around safety, but they're private, they're fast, experience is usually pretty good, and so they took off. The only problem is they're opaque, and so sometimes you lose your money if any of you used FTX. And so it's great when that doesn't happen, but it's not so good when that does happen. And then second came the decentralized exchanges. And so the idea there is, well, we have this blockchain. Why don't we just run the exchange on the blockchain? And then you don't have to worry about your money being lost, which sounds really cool, and it is really cool, but the only problem is now every single trade you want to do, it has to run through some kind of consensus step, and that's not ideal for performance. And so you end up with something that's kind of slow. The other problem is being public sounds cool, but if you're a trader, do you really want all your trades and strategies on chain for everybody else to learn from? Maybe not, right? And so privacy is actually something that people value, but they're fair, right? And so with that, that kind of brings us to where we are today. If you're a trader, you're going to have to pick one lane. Either you get something that's fast and good, or you get something that's safe, but you can't have both. And we just felt that, does it really have to be that way? And so we started doing some digging and thinking about the technology available at the time and what was kind of emerging, and that's where we hit ZK. And so the main idea is, actually I'll skip to this, the main idea is with zero knowledge technology, which I'm sure all of you are familiar, but I'll do a little debrief on it. Why don't we just do both? Why don't we find a way where people can trade, you can have a fast exchange, it's private, it's secure, and you don't have to worry about your funds being lost, right? And so when we first started thinking about this and building Hibachi, the main question was, why hasn't anybody done this? If it's such a great technology and it's so much better and it's going to be better user experience, where are the ZK exchanges? And the answer is, it's too expensive, right? So back then, it was just way too expensive and too slow to do these ZK proofs. And fortunately, we've had lots and lots of great companies like Risk Zero and Succinct and all sorts of others working on getting that cost down. And so we've had some exponential drops in the cost per proof, which finally enable consumer applications like what we are to deliver a superb experience. And that was kind of the impetus for Hibachi. How do we do this? Well, there's a lot of boxes on this screen. I'm just going to summarize the philosophy in terms of two pieces, and they're based on one paradigm. That paradigm is you should build what's best for the user, not what we think is cool, not what in theory is fun. What do users actually want? And the idea is, well, users want two things, fast and safe, right? You want to have a fast experience. Speed matters, particularly in finance, and you don't want to know you're not going to lose your funds. Sam Bankman-Fried is not going to go YOLO them into whatever the latest shitcoin is. And so the idea is, well, why don't we just rebuild the trading engine of Coinbase, of Binance, of these centralized exchanges, which are great. They're fast, you know, the matching is fast. You get to do all the things that you'd want to do. But instead of using their custody layer, which is basically just Venmo me some money and then, you know, trust me, bro, you'll get it back eventually. Why don't we just use smart contracts? And so the paradigm behind Hibachi is we'll take the smart contracts, you just deposit the smart contract, the state of the smart contract informs the state of the exchange. You go to the exchange, you trade, it's instant, your latency is super low, and you just have a great trading experience. And then what we'll do is we'll take all the transactions and we just batch, submit them on the contract using ZK proofs. And so in this cycle, your deposits are the same speed, your trading is the same speed as it would be on centralized exchanges. The only time you're even going to notice that there's a ZK piece is when you're withdrawing, which right now takes like 10 minutes or so. But with all the advances going on, we're probably going to get that down to 2 to 3 minutes in pretty soon. And at that point, it's really indistinguishable from the experience you're going to have on a centralized exchange. But you can lose the money. Or if you lose the money, it's because you traded poorly, not because we stole it, right? And that's, I think, a pretty important paradigm for running an exchange. And so that's the core idea. Now, with that, there's still a big problem, which is, well, even if the exchange works and the core experience is really good and you know that things are being done correctly, what about other risks? Like, how do you know that you're not giving 1,000x leverage to people, or that like we're doing all these wild things where the funds might be safe, but what if there's other guarantees you want, right? And so usually the answer would be, Well, just post them on chain, but that was too expensive until Celestia came along. And then there's the second problem, and I think this is where Nuke is going to talk about a little bit is, well, even if we have Celestia, we can post everything, but now all your trades are going to be public. Do you want your trades to be public? Maybe, probably not, right? And so we started talking to the team at Celestia and trying to figure out what is the right user experience here. Again, start with the user, figure out what's best, and put them at the focus. And so the team figured out a really cool solution where we basically have a private DA layer. And so we'll post the key guarantees that you want, all the data stored in Celestia, and then there's a really clever mechanism for if things go wrong or if there's specific events, you can just get the insights that you want. And so I think Nuke is going to talk about that much better than I can. But again, the core idea is how do you put the user at the center? And I think that's really the main point I want to make today is all of you are engaged in building really cool technology, and I think that this verifiable finance and all the other things we're going to talk about, it's the future, and it's a much better technology, but it's not going to just win by itself. People don't choose technology, they choose experiences, right? And so it's on all of us to build better experiences, to build better exchanges, to build better applications, and that is really how the technology wins, right? Everybody who's in this room is probably going to pick Hibachi or a similar exchange because the technology is cool, but most users don't do that. They choose what's convenient, what's fast, what's safe, right? And so it's on us to put the user at the center, put them at the forefront, and build the best possible experience. With that, with this approach, we can finally solve a lot of these problems. As you can see, all the other boxes are red, and ours are green, which might be because I wrote the slides or because we just have a better technology. But yeah, I think the core problem with an exchange, I was talking to the team this morning, I'm just so proud of what they've built, but the core problem you're solving with an exchange is you want something that can trade as fast as possible, but you also want to be correct, right? You need to do some kind of accounting because my money shouldn't end up in your account, and like the math needs to work out. And so we've really only had two approaches to that so far. You could do the centralized approach, which is trade fast and then hire a bunch of accountants and lawyers and people to make sure that hopefully the money doesn't get lost, or maybe steal the money, which I don't recommend, but it happens, sadly. Or you have the decentralized approach, which is basically you trade off all the trading experience in order to get blockchain guarantees on the accounting piece, right? But finally now with this modular technology stack and with the ZK technology that we have today, we can build something that addresses all user needs. And so you can have your cake and eat it too. You don't need to get used to, you have to stop making this compromise. We're not going to force the user to pick safe or fast. You get both and you get a great experience. And so yeah, that's what we do. I'm actually going to skip over this a little bit because Nuke has an even cooler explanation of how everything works. But what I'd say is privacy is important, and privacy and safety can coexist, right? And so the current decentralized paradigm is you solve the security and safety problems by having everything be public. And that's cool for certain things, but it's not actually something that people want for most of their data. It's okay to have privacy. It's actually desirable. And so I think a lot of the technologies that people in this room are building are going to allow us to have privacy and safety coexist. And so I'm very excited about what the team at Celestia has built and what everybody else is building in this space. So yeah, that's Hibachi. Any questions? It's a cloud. Great question, right? And I think it comes back to user experience, right? So part of the new wave of crypto has been different experimentations with ways of having the core engine work. And I think that's really cool for things like swaps. Maybe you have a token on one chain, you're trying to exchange it to something else. You can give you some guarantees. But when it comes to the core problem of what is the fastest, best, lowest spread exchange, collabs are the king, right? And so we built a collab exchange for that reason.
Thank you. What's the current cost of operating an exchange, like a ZK exchange, versus like just running it normally centralized?
Yeah.
As of now, and where do you expect that to be in a few years?
It's an awesome question. If you asked me a year ago, the answer would not have been so good. But I think it's really easy to think about your costs as your just transactional costs, right? And so for ZK, every trade has some cost to it, right? Because we're ZK proving it, and so you could computer cost. It's pretty low now. There's some very good negotiating the team has done, so I can't disclose the exact numbers. But you're at a place where you're profitable per trade pretty easily at very small trade sizes. And so what people like to do is you think about the trade, you think about the cost of the trade. That's your operating cost, right? But if you think about the centralized paradigm, yeah, you might not pay any money to do that specific trade. You're actually paying a lot of costs on all the lawyers and accountants, all the people who have to manage things, right? And so there's two ways to solve that. Either you just have a much higher OpEx, which is the like Coinbase Binance model, and that's your cost really, Or you do the FTX way, which is just no guarantees, no safety, and you lose all the money. That's not good either, right? And so we're at the point now where we can reliably price our trades cheaper than a centralized exchange would, and it's only going to get better from here.
Nice.
Thanks for the presentation. Be curious, how are you guys thinking about building a community?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a drawback and there's a benefit to the way that we're building things, right? And so the drawback is that traditionally in crypto, your chain is your community, right? And so what people will be is like, well, we're a Solana exchange, we're a Sui exchange, we're Arbitrum, and you just get the people who are focused on that specific chain. Now, we don't actually believe in that for multiple reasons. First of all, again, put the user at the center. Are you really going to force people you need to use this chain or that chain? Coinbase doesn't do that, Binance doesn't do that, right? And so the idea behind Hibachi is you should be able to deposit from whatever chain you want and just trade, right? Now, the drawback of that is we don't have a natural chain where we can say, well, we think Solana is better than everything else, and therefore they're going to hype us, and vice versa. But the benefit here is we have all of you, all the people in this room, right? We have all the people building this new wave of ZK technology. And so I think ZK and the modular approach is going to deliver better solutions, but we kind of need to band together in order to advocate for that, because I think for how great the technology is, it's not getting the level of publicity that it deserves. And I think part of that is because people are used to this chain paradigm for community, where really it should be about the technology stack. And so I think this event, all of you being here today, is how we fix that. And so our plan is to keep partnering with all the companies doing great things in this space, and to promote the new paradigm and get people used to aiming higher. I think if there's one thing I want users to take away, it's you should demand better of your exchange, and we should be able to deliver that with this new wave of technology. Thank you, everyone.